Have you ever asked yourselves of the questions of who the host of this show, IHNDY series is? The questions of who he is, what does he do in life, what's the mantra behind this? So today we are privileged as we bring to a closure the first season as it comes to an end. We'd like to know who is Sam Nabule. We'd like to know what is the inspiration behind him. What's the inspiration behind whatever that we do. So stay tuned and listen to Sam Nabule.
Growth is one of the distinguishing qualities of the human race. There's always that inward craving to become a better person as time goes by. Here is a show on peer mentorship that focuses on personal growth, whose positive effects will be manifested in the societies and communities where these people and individuals stay.
So what happens when the host is being hosted in his own show? It must be an amazing feeling and amazing thing, not only to us as a IHNDY series family, but also to the host himself. And Sam, today I'm privileged to have you on the bench. And today I'm hoping that you'll allow me to be your host, respond to the questions that you ask us.
All right.
As we celebrate this and as we think about this, it's another way and another day to think about the journey that we have made as IHNDY. We have made series, we have made 10 episodes, and our movie, if we call it a movie, it will be having 10 episodes, and the first season is coming to an end, and in a style this time round, with the host being hosted. At this juncture, I would like to bring on our host. And so Sam, right now I would like to welcome you to tell our viewers, our followers who you are, and some brief introduction about yourself.
My name is Samuel Nabule. I am a Kenyan. I am one of the members of the Discussed Brothers of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, and currently I'm a student of theology in Tangaza University College. Basically for now, I think that's enough, right?
Being the host, and you have been hosting us in this show. So what inspired the show? What will you tell us? How did it start?
Ever since I was in high school, I think I was interested in photography and videography. And so I love taking a lot of photos and videos and just little stuff. Of course, not in the professional way. But then that dream faded away sometime. When I was doing my first degree, I said, let me focus on some other stuff. But then later on, I came to realize that when disaster struck my world, I came back to this hobby that I used to have. So basically, this is a product of grief. The show began as a remedy to grief. Of course, I tried many other remedies. You know, I play basketball, I do music and instrumentals, I write, I do some other stuff. So when grief came, I tried all those things to be able to save my situation. But none of them has worked as effectively as this. So I think that's how it all began. For the name of the show, I think that's what propels the consistency that is there and the passion and the zeal that is there. So the name of the show is IHNDY, and I receive a lot of questions. Sam, what does this thing mean? It goes back to some 15, 18 years ago. My dad used to be my best friend. He's the best man I ever know in this world.
Wow.
And whenever I had issues, I'd run to him and tell him, hey, I think I'm stuck here. So, you know, he'd tell me whatever he wanted to tell me in forms of encouragement, in terms of consolation, in terms of direction. And it was only until later that I came to realize a consistency, a sort of pattern in whatever he used to tell me. So he'd tell me anything. Let's say I approach him with an issue of let's say any issue. As a man, you can approach your dad for some guidance, and after the end of every conversation, he'd tell me, Sam, in capability, I have never doubted you. So some months later again, I'm into a crisis and I go to him, tell him, hey, I'm stuck. So he'd advise me accordingly and end with those same words, in capability, I have never doubted you. It was only until when I was 20 years of age, or maybe 21, 22, that I realized that this is a familiar statement that he keeps repeating every time I go to him. So I said, okay, well, it seems my dad has this enormous trust in me, that he doesn't doubt me in anything. He believes I can be anything I want. He believes I can do anything I want. He believes nothing is difficult in me.
For
Because
sure.
it's a way a father encourages the child. And so
Sure.
I decided to take the last phrases of those words and make it some sort of mantra. for me. So the IHNDY are actually initials for I have never doubted you. Because that's what the man used to tell me every day. Then I'll tell you something interesting about the phrase again. When I was doing my first degree, my immediate boss had never met my dad anywhere.
Okay.
So one day, I go to him for the periodic evaluations we do. So I was experiencing a crisis at that time,
Okay.
and this man repeated those same exact words.
Wow.
I was like, wow, how not? Of course, I didn't ask him about it, but I was just amazed that I went to ask my dad later on, do you know such a man? Have you ever met him before? And the answer was no. So I don't know how that can be explained, but he repeated those same words. So basically, to answer your question, what drives the passion and the consistency in these, I think it's the mystery behind that name, the mystery behind what it means to me personally.
And so when you manage to go through grief, and you're managing every now and then, so what has changed your perspective about grief?
Well, a lot has changed. First, beginning from the very basic definition of grief. Of course, psychology has its own definition, which I totally respect and agree with. But then through this journey, I've come up with my own definition. Of course, I know I'm not a scholar and I'm an authority in that field, but my definition of grief is that grief is a love that we can no longer give to people. Grief is an energy that needs to be communicated. Grief is this passion that sends you out to do something, and the vice in that is that if you don't get to do something out of grief, it will end up suffocating you. And I think that's what leads people into depression and stuff. That's my opinion. I may be wrong, but that's what I've come to learn. Then also something that has shifted in that paradigm is that there are various stages of grief, as psychology puts it, which psychology believes that it's a progressive process. But then my experience has shown me otherwise. I don't mean that I disregard whatever psychology is bringing to us. I'm just trying to say that my experience has been different and has made me learn something new. So in as much as psychology believes that if well oriented and well organized, somebody can deal with grief in a more progressive manner, of course with some relapses here and there. I think otherwise, in my experience, based on my experience, of course. I think it's I think we deal with grief differently, and for some, grief comes to hit them later on. Then others, grief hits them at that exact moment. And so, as psychology says that, we have these stages. I don't think it applies for everybody. I don't think it applies to everybody at all times.
Sure.
So basically, that I think my greatest lesson about grief has been that this is an energy which needs to be channeled somewhere. If it's not channeled anywhere, then somebody succumbs. And I think I've tried to channel it. I learned that hack actually.
Okay.
From, of course, with the many sessions I've been having with my mentors and spiritual directors and therapists. And upon learning that, I decided to channel this energy into different things. IHNDY series being one of it.
And I think at this juncture, I don't know if Sam has something else to say about the lessons he has learned from grief apart from that one. Might you be having some other few lessons that you might want to share with us?
Oh yeah, of course. There are a number of lessons I've learned. There's this author by the name Mary Craig. She says that the greatest tragedy in pain and suffering isn't the sorrow involved, but is the lack of the missed opportunity to draw lessons from that pain. And this is something I learned long before even. I read long before even grief struck. But it's only after grief struck that I actually understood what she was saying.
And yeah.
So, of course, the first and basic lesson I learned is that grief is energy. Grief is energy, and like any other energy, it has to be transmitted and channeled. You know, we talk of solar energy, we get it from the sun, then we channel it to other places. We talk of mechanical energy, it has to be channeled. It can't be contained. I think the second basic lesson that I learned is that ultimately and fundamentally, we are all that we have. Yeah.
We are all that we have.
We are all that we have. We might lose every other thing, but we rarely lose ourselves. You might lose your job, you might lose your spouse, you might lose your kids, you might lose your friends, but you are assured of yourself. And so from that, I think it's of extreme importance for us to know who exactly we are, so that we befriend ourselves. You know, let's assume you're my brother or you're my best friend, and I really know the details of your entire existence. I know that if I'm buying Jeff a gift, I'll have to buy a gift of this color. I know that at such a point when I see Jeff doing this, then this indicates this. So if I see Jeff, let's say, withdrawn, then I know that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
If I see Jeff amenyoa afro yake, there is something.
For sure.
We know people to that extent. We know our friends to that extent. We know our brothers to that extent. We know our sisters to that extent. We know our parents to that extent. But do we know ourselves to that extent? You know, we are very sure of the people that are around us, but we are rarely sure of who we are. So I think it's of extreme importance. Coming to understand that we are all that we have is of extreme importance to know who we are. You know, self-knowledge. I normally joke with some of my friends that try one day to take yourself for a date. Of course, I know it sounds crazy, but try to sit with yourself and try to understand the person within. The advantage in that is that once such thing like grief knocks in, you'll actually know how to deal with it. You know, let's say you have a best friend, or let's just say
some good friends.
I'm sure if you know them well enough, you'll know what to do to them when they're grieving. You'll know that if Jeff is grieving, this is what I can do to remedy the situation. Of course, I can't do much, but this is the little I can do. But then let me ask you a basic question. Do you know what you can do to yourself when you're grieving?
Wow. Do you know what you can do to yourself when you're grieving? I don't know.
So it's of extreme importance to understand the person within. That's a lesson I learned deeply, of course the hard way.
Yeah, we always learn the hard way.
But at least I learned it. Then another lesson I learned is that don't postpone the expression of your affection to others.
Oh yes.
It's that basic idea of buying people flowers while they can still smell them. You know.
Sure.
A number of times we're human, right? And we have emotions, and these emotions have to be communicated to people. A number of times we look at someone and say, I think I want to do something for him or her, but not today.
Not today.
Not today. Let me try it next month. You want to buy them something, but you say no today. Let me do it next month. You want to take them out for, let's say, a date or something, but you say, not today. Let me do it tomorrow. But before you realize, they cease to exist. So I think I understood fundamentally within the hard way that if you don't do things to people when they can still appreciate them, it might haunt you, because the next time you want to do it, once they go, you can't bring them back to do for them things.
For sure.
So
we do it for them right now.
I just express that as early as I can, as immediate as I can. The last, and I think this should be the first, is that if you give God enough time, if you give God enough time, He'll paint for you the bigger picture and you'll be able to appreciate it. You know, when you're lost in town, let's say it's your first time in New York City, and you know there are all these skyscrapers and everybody in the streets running around or something, and you have no idea where you are. You'll think that, man, I'm done, I'm doomed. let's not even go far. Let's not even talk of New York. Upper Nairobi, you know, just get lost in some street or some alley somewhere, and you're trying to go in front, you can't see hope there. You're looking behind, you're seeing a gang of 5 guys around, you know. Then you'll come and say, okay, I'm doomed here. I don't see any future for myself. I think it's the same thing that happens with life. There are sometimes we are caught up in some alleys or some avenues or some streets, and we can't really understand how the road is going or where we can go, and we think we are done. But then there is something called Google Maps, right? When you're lost in town, you remove your gadget and Google, and you search yourself where you are in the map and where to go. I think if you give God enough time, He'll be able to bring for you that aerial view of where you are, and you'll be able to see that bigger picture, and you'll come to realize that actually I'm not as lost as I think I am. Such a thing, if you tell somebody who is grieving, who is on the initial stages of grieving, they can't really understand what you're saying. That's why I put this lesson as number 5, because I came to learn of it later in life, later after, way after my grief. You know, we're human, right?
For sure.
God forbid, if you lost, let's say if you're married, let's say you're married, and you lost your wife, the love of your life. And the first thing I come to tell you that day is that God has a better plan for you.
Oh no. Oh no.
Me, you can slap me. You can slap the hell out of me. Or you'll just withdraw and say, okay, listen to you another day.
Sure.
But that's a fact, I think. I believe in the idea that everything works for good for those who
believe in God.
But this is something you can't understand when that disaster has struck you. So I think if you give God enough time,
He'll paint the picture.
He'll paint the picture
for you.
You know, let's take off this background here.
For sure.
If I look at this branch, if I just focus on this branch, I won't really see the beauty of all this scenery. But if I look at it as a whole, then I'll realize how beautiful it is. I think grief gives us a narrow view of our lives. But then if you give God enough time, He'll paint for us the beautiful
picture. Entire scenery.
And we'll be able to understand that actually it's not as bad as we think.
Fantastic. That if we give God enough time, He will paint the full picture for us. And something else Nabule has just quoted from the scriptures is, everything works for good for those who believe, for those who trust in God. And I think, Nabule, it's good we end it with such a reflection. It is good that we have to bring it to such a closure. And if you have some final remarks for us today on the topic of grief, and we also remember that it is his birthday, we wouldn't mind having him sharing a wish for us. We wouldn't mind our host telling us the future of IHNDY series. What is his plan for our next season? Should we wait for the next season? Or do you mean you want to cut it us here or something? You need to tell us something about IHNDY and its future.
In terms of continuity and progression, let's wait and see. Because there's this book entitled Start With Why. Once you understand the why of something, you'll understand why you're doing it.
Fantastic.
So the reason for this was to help me nurse my grief.
Fantastic.
I don't know if I'm out of that place yet, but in case I am, then logically it has served its purpose. But this wasn't just for me. I believe it was for, for peer mentorship, for enlightening others, for bringing people who have drawn various lessons in life and sharing it to the whole world. So I think for the sake of not being selfish, it is good that I continue with it.
Wow, that is something. And maybe somewhat you haven't realized so far is that sometimes the reasons that we started the things that we do are not the very reasons that keep us doing the very, very things we are doing. Pole pole, we say the reasons keep changing, they become better. Sometimes we start from very primitive points of view, but pole pole, it becomes even a story that is even bigger than ourselves. And That's a nice point. It's a point of hope for us viewers, for those of us who have subscribed to this family of IHNDY, and we are really waiting. We are really waiting for season 2, and please don't disappoint us. That will be something.
If all goes well, it will be bigger and better. I'll bring for you the best of people here. It's my first time to be hosted. I feel nervous. I have I've never thought of doing this. I've always been asking people questions, not the other way around. But I'm hoping season 2 to be better and bigger, based on the little experiences I've gathered from here and there. And I hope that will be my little contribution to society. You know, we can't end poverty in Africa. A single man can't end poverty in Africa.
Sure.
A single man can't stop the war in Ukraine and Russia.
Sure.
But it's the little things that we do to help the human society, that at the end of the day, when you're going back to our rooms to sleep, you get that sense of fulfillment, that I've done something for God and for humanity.
For sure.
Which I think is the basic fundamental call we have as humans. So,
Sure, it's different when the story is bigger than yourself. It's different, kabisa, and we are happy you're having that view for us. And I think this is the greatest wish you're making for us on such a day for us. So I think as we come to a closure of it, as IHNDY, once again, the family, on behalf of the family, our viewers, our subscribers and commenters down there, we really like to wish you the very best as you start a new year. As you mark this new age, we'd like you become the better version of yourself. Will you please share with us your best version of yourself? We wouldn't mind interacting with that version in our coming episodes, in our coming season, and wish you good health and long live in service of the Lord and His people, and the many things that you put your hands on, you lay your fingers on. May God continue blessing them and making you the person that He wants you to be. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for kukubali I host you. It means so much to me, and this is an honor and a privilege from IHNDY series. God bless you, and all the best. Happy birthday, Sam.
Asante sana. Thank you, Manze.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being there, for the friendship that we share. I appreciate it.
You are always welcome. Thank you so
for
much.
always being there for us. Thank you for subscribing, watching, and giving me a reason to keep serving you. Hopefully, let's meet in season 2. I'm very glad that we have come to the end of season 1 of the IHNDY series, and I'm glad that you've been learning, and I've been learning as well. You know, listening from all these people who have been hosting, it has been really, really amazing. Some of these things people spend 4 years in class to learn, but at least in 20 or 30 minutes, someone has been able to come and share with us what they have. Until next time, may God bless you abundantly and success in your endeavors. Asante sana.